Hello. Here we are with week 5. Can you believe? Today I'm going to share about the higher faculties of mind. However, I wanted to address a couple of questions that have come up. The first one was Michelle asked after last week, when I was speaking about repetition, that sometimes repetition comes from negativity. And yes, it can. If we are going back to our goal and visualizing from a place of placing the order again, of making sure, of just in case, of maybe I did it wrong, then we're in a place, an energy that isn't going to attract to us anyway. So, we need to bring ourselves into a place of presence, of alignment, and then do our visualizing from there. Now, the reason I visualize is not to replace my order. It is to close the gap between what I desire and where I am. So every time I visualize, I actually feel it more. I get more detail around the picture, around what I'm imagining, and more of my senses start to get involved. As I get more clarity, the more certain I become, the more feeling I get. And that increased feeling is actually telling me that I'm getting closer and closer to my goal. And as I repeat it, it's actually being embedded into my subconscious mind. Now, remembering that mind is in every cell of the body, feeling is part of the subconscious mind. So when we are getting feeling around our goal, that's telling us it's being accepted and embodied. If we're getting negative feelings, then we have to look at the reason behind why we're doing it. Now, if we believe we're going to get results other than what we're focusing on, then, our beliefs are going to create for us. But I absolutely know that as we get a picture in our mind, that picture, that life that picture represents already exists, because we can't connect to anything that doesn't exist. And if we're getting mixed results or something we don't want, then we are focused in the wrong direction. If we're getting something that we don't want, then our feelings are stronger than the image that we're looking at. If the image is truly something we want, our feelings should feel awesome. And if they don't, then we need to look at the reason why our feelings are feeling off. And it'll be perspective. It won't be the picture. It'll be, oh my God, if I achieve this, that means so much change. I don't know if I'm ready for this. It might be, who will I leave behind? Who will judge me? It could be any number of things, but it won't be the picture itself. So that's really important to play with, really important to get clear with. Now, the other thing that I wanted to ask is, why aren't you all playing full out? Some of you are watching me every week, and that's awesome, and I appreciate all of the feedback I'm getting. That's awesome. We could be really supporting each other in a huge way here to get clarity around our goals, around our feelings, and we could be closing the gaps right now. But everybody is staying in their own little space. Why are you afraid to share your goal? Why are you afraid to step out and interact and ask questions? And I'm asking this not from a place of pointing any of you out, but that was me. You know, I've come from this space. I used to hide. Even in physical life, I was a hider. You know, I was afraid of saying or doing the wrong thing or looking like a fool, so I kept quiet. I didn't go where I wasn't familiar because I was afraid of humiliation. And therefore, you know, I really held myself back. I limited myself. So whenever we hold ourselves back, that's a limitation. We've got a safe container here. Nothing in this group is to be shared beyond this group. This is a space for all of us to interact without fear of it going beyond here. We're all here to help each other and to create the lives that we desire. And the second thing around this is we only ever meet with aspects of ourself. You know, attraction, reaction. It's our frequency that connects each one of us. And we only ever meet with the other person what is part of us. So if we connect with something in another person that we don't like, we have to look at that and say, where is this in me? We need to accept it. We don't necessarily need to love it, but we need to accept it and say, wow, that's interesting. You know, without reaction, without negative feeling, just say, wow. But whatever we see around us or in another person, the opposite of that is also there. So, you know, if we see something negative, that's proof that the positive of that is also there, because everything's in polarity. So it's really important to understand, you know, and as my journey with my business has evolved, you know, I've shared myself more and more authentically on social media. And at first, that was uncomfortable, that was scary, and I held back because I didn't want the rebuff. I didn't want people judging me and criticizing me and putting negative comments on my shares. So I held myself back. And once I realized I was only interacting with me and that I had the opportunity to actually become aware of more of myself through this interaction, then I understood how much I was limiting myself. What is there to be afraid of when you are the only one in your world? When we're speaking to ourselves, interacting with ourselves, bumping up against ourselves, you know, experiencing ourselves. So I'd ask you all, please, share your goal. Let's really dig into these goals and get a goal that is a C-type goal, something that is way above what you've ever achieved, and something that you know that when you achieve it isn't through mere force, it's through your alignment. Because that's when the magic really happens. That's when you really start to believe without any doubt at all that you are your own creator. Once you have proof that you're creating, you get bigger and bolder and braver. And what you start attracting will blow your mind. So I ask you, please find that courage. There's nothing to be afraid of. This is a safe space. We're all you. And when we share our goals, we're no longer coveting them, and we give them expression and expansion, and we hasten the time between now and the achievement. Okay. The faculties of mind. We as humans have been programmed to live from the outside in. You know, we learn to respond or react to our outside world. And this programming really makes us the plaything of the past, because everything we experience outside of us is created from our past, from where we've been, from who we've been, because our whole world is emanating in every moment from within ourselves. So the physical is always the past. We can, certainly observe the outside world and use it to realign ourselves, to readjust. We need to be aware of what's going on outside of us, but we be aware not from reaction, but from a place of being able to shift course. So we have the ability through our higher faculties, which, as far as we know, nothing else, no other little living creature on earth has got. And they are perception, will, imagination, memory, reason, and intuition. So we've got 6 faculties. Memory. A lot of us will say we've got a bad memory. You know what? We've got a perfect memory. All of our faculties work by law. There's no good or bad. There's no faulty. But there is under-practiced, under-exercised. So just like we exercise our muscles, we need to exercise these faculties of mind. So, we have a perfect memory. When we start to tell ourselves we've got a perfect memory, we'll start to actually see proof of that around us. But, there's plenty of ways we can improve our memory too. We can give ourselves tasks to remember, and we can revisit them over and over until we actually do remember them. But as we practice our memory, it gets better and better. Then we've got reason. Reason is what gives us the ability to think. Thinking is a function of our highest mind. It's a reasoning factor that actually allows us to think independently, to have new thought, and to string ideas together, string thoughts together to create ideas. So reasoning gives us the ability to actually think for ourselves instead of just thinking like the masses. Since we're in control of our thinking, excuse me, I've got a few notes here. Since we are in control of our thinking, we should not really spend time thinking negative thoughts. Now, none of us actually think negative thoughts on purpose. But how many times do you catch yourself down that negative road, stepping in potholes? And yeah, potholes can be fun if they're full of water and we're feeling playful. But I know I catch myself, I'll be thinking about something, and next thing I know, I'll have a scenario going on in my head that really isn't something I want to live. And it's important then to catch that and do a switch. I usually say, wow, that was interesting. That's given me a glimpse into my subconscious programming. And that can allow me then to use auto-suggestion or something to shift my focus. you know, and it might be just as simple as saying, wow, that was interesting, but I don't have time for that right now, you know, and switch to what we do want. Perception. Perception is our point of view. And I actually looked up perception on the dictionary a little while ago. You know, I always thought perception and perspective were very, very exchangeable. Pretty much the same thing. But perception is like polarity. It allows us to actually look at something from either a positive or a negative perspective, to actually be able to play with our mind and see it from a different frequency. Perspective is more like a 3D perspective. You know, from where I'm sitting, I can see, you know, this glass of water in a certain way. The glass of water probably isn't the perfect, but, you know, if you're looking at me, you're going to see me from a different angle depending on where you've got your computer screen set up or your phone. You know, if we're looking at an object that's not symmetrical, because a glass is going to look fairly the same from anywhere, unless you're looking from directly above it. You know, but perspective is just that. You know, we can look from here, from the side, or we can look from here, and we're going to see something completely different. So perspective is more about our stance, whereas perception is playing with reason and seeing it from different mind states, if that makes sense. And we can change our perception of something simply by choosing a different stance, a different frequency, or a different point of view. You know, I might think $10,000 is small if I've, you know, just received a payment of $100,000. But if I only had $10 in my bank account, then $10,000 would be bigger, would be big, you know. And perception is really that. It's changing the polarity or the contrast from which we're viewing something from, to be able to make it something that serves us instead of something that doesn't. Then we've got imagination. Imagination is my best friend, I can tell you. Imagination creates fantasies. And the fantasy is the first step in the creation of life. The creative process is 3 stages. First of all, there's fantasy, and then we can use our reason, our perception, and turn it into a theory. And then adding feeling and belief, faith, we can turn it into fact. It's important to remember that without the aid of imagination, there could be no creation at all. Without the aid of imagination, there could be no creation at all. Without the aid of imagination, there could be no creation at all. That's really a powerful statement to remember. Everything, absolutely everything, began as a thought. Everything is created twice. First in our imagination, and then it manifests in the material world. Think about it. You know, well, you might say, well, XYZ's in my life, and I didn't imagine that. And I would challenge you and say, well, actually you did. You might have done it subconsciously. You know, we get a bill that we can't afford, that we've got no idea how to pay, and we go down a scenario of what's going to happen. And because we are imagining it, because we are emotional about it, we're creating it. We are creating in every moment of every day. When we get intentional, that's when life gets really fun. Will. Will gives us the ability to hold one picture on the screen of our mind, with the exclusion of all outside distraction. How good is your will? How long can you hold the image of what you desire on your mind without distraction? To build will, you know, we can focus on a candle flame and hold our attention there. We can put a tiny little spot with our ballpoint pen on the wall a couple of meters in front of us, one that nobody else would ever see, but you know it's there, and hold your attention on that spot. This is practicing building the will. And when you can do that for as long as you choose to do it, you know, if you say to yourself, I'm going to hold my vision there for 10 minutes, and you do it, then that's awesome. I would suggest you start with 30 seconds or a minute and then build it up. But the stronger our will, the more ability we have to actually keep our focus where we desire it to be. So will is really important. I think probably imagination and will are my two strongest. Perception, yeah, that's awesome. And I've been playing with perception for years, and perspective, and reason, you know, but reason, a lot of people tend to reason and they bring in their logic mind. And logic is part of the subconscious programming. So, you know, if it's limited logic, then, you know, it's not going to take us where we want to go. So, you know, by changing the program in our subconscious mind, we actually shift that around so that when we reason from, you know, our higher self, from a perspective that is going to serve us every single time. Intuition. It's intuition that we pick up vibrations and translate the vibrations with our mind. Intuition permits us to know that we know what's happening around us. You know, Bob used to be able to look at somebody and he'd say, even without having a conversation, he'd say, you're very right-brained, or you are balanced, your left and right brain are both equally powerful. Because he could pick up the energy. He was intuitive. You know, and a lot of people think that intuition is a sixth sense. But actually it's one of our faculties of mind. It's part of our higher abilities to create our own world, to know what's going on around us, and to be able to adjust. When we can look at our results and let our results register in our mind, the results cause us to think. Excuse me. The results cause us to think. So you could look at your outside world, Maybe you look at your bank statement. Maybe you're excited, maybe you're not. And then whatever you see causes thinking. That causes pictures in your mind. Then you get feeling about it, positive or negative, and you create more of the same. And this is why most of us are living in a world that hardly ever changes. Because we are looking at what is outside of us and reacting to it, and not creating the world that we want. How fun is it to know that we can create our own world? I hope you're starting to believe this. I mean, really believe it beyond your mind. You know, I was somebody that believed in deliberate creation. I've been studying this for a long, long time. Many, many, many years. But it was all up here. I'd read things once and I'd say, yeah, wow, I get that. I understand that. And then I'd go on and do something else and it would be gone. Now, I am reading and learning and studying and experiencing over and over and over and over the same material day in, day out. And it's been more than a year now. And the reason I do that is because it's getting in. You know, I read a book and I might read 2 pages and it might take me half an hour. And you could say, oh my God, you're a slow reader. No, I read, I think, I feel. Does this feel right or not? Does it feel good? I experience it in my body. I notice what I'm feeling. And life, you know, gives us that opportunity to do that. If we meet something that we love, absorb it, take it all in, revisit it. If we interact with somebody who pushes our buttons, we get to learn from that. Wow, this is interesting. What's in my subconscious mind? Great. I get to transform this. I get to shift my perception. I get to reason. I get to use my imagination and will now and change all of this. Once we embed all of any of the powerful information, which is our truth, who we are, the infinite consciousness, the all-being, all-knowing, all-powerful source of everything. When we truly understand who we are and the laws of creation, and we submit this to our memory, then there is nothing we can't be, do, or have. And there's nothing that we can't be or do or have right now, except what we experience through the filter of our subconscious mind. So we can step out from behind that filter in presence awareness. And while we are in presence, we are creating directly through our source self. The thing is, we're in a physical world and we came here to explore the physical. And most of us get caught up in believing that who we're looking at in the mirror is who we are. And we get caught up in believing what we're looking at out there is real. It's very difficult to stay present, and that is a belief that I need to get rid of. Of course, it's easy to be present. But when we've got our subconscious mind supporting that presence, supporting the beingness which is underneath this physicalness, and we understand how to use the laws, we can think and use this physical being to create the world that we want. You know, the magic happens when our human self aligns with our non-physical self, not when we escape our physical self. And there's a big difference, you know, and even, you know, creating habit. We decide we're going to go to the gym and we do it religiously for a couple of weeks and then we miss a day for some reason. It's hard picking it back up, getting back into it. It's like we've got to start all over again. And that's because of our subconscious programming, because we haven't changed our habits, and therefore the old habits come back in. So I hope today has been helpful. Have an absolutely beautiful day. And I would really love for you guys, you all, to interact with me on a deeper level. Interact with each other. We're here to really lift each other up and support each other to achieve whatever it is we want to achieve. So let's have fun. Let's open up to trust. Start to trust yourself enough to share what's on your heart. Have an absolutely beautiful day. See you next week.